Today on my first concert. Well, a guitar tech would be nice, wouldn't it? I was a drum tech today. If you need help with a guitar tech, I'm good at the grunt work. There's no problem with that. And you mentioned L.A. Buckner and Big Homie playing with them. And it's January you did that new artist show?
Yeah, we just finished the new artist showcase at First Ave.
Yeah.
It was sponsored by The Current and KFAI and Jazz 88, KBM.
Mm-hmm.
And that was super fun.
What's it like playing First Ave? It's legendary. Did you know about First Avenue when you were out in the East Coast growing up?
I think the only reason I knew about First Ave was because of Purple Rain, the movie.
Okay.
It was shown on like VH1, a bunch or something like that back in the day.
Welcome back, Dave Lee here, our producer, Davide. Davide, great to see you again.
Good to see you again, Dave.
And remember, you can listen to these podcasts wherever you get your podcast, Apple, Spotify, TalkNorth.com, got a bunch of them there, and much more. And we've been talking about the Minnesota Sound here for quite a while on these podcasts. And we're seeing now a younger generation come in and become just so talented, because sometimes you have these groups and you think, God, where's the next generation of music coming from? Well, we're in pretty good hands here. If you're into music, you've seen it and heard it here in the Twin Cities. And among that new generation is a guy named David Feily. A lot of you may be familiar with David. I bet you a lot of you have heard of him, may not even know it. You've heard him on the radio. He says things at David at the jazz station.
At the KBM,
I played a fair amount as well. So, David, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, lots of questions for you. But first of all, as a musician, I'm always curious, what was the first concert you ever went to? Do you remember?
I think the first real concert I went to was The Dead, as in the Grateful Dead, but it was in their period of time, after Jerry, and it was just The Dead. And I was in a group of friends in like late middle, early high school of guitar players. We're all kind of figuring it out. And one of our friends' dads was a Deadhead, and also was very encouraging of all of us playing guitar. So he took us to see The Dead. I think it was at one of the pavilions in the DMV, Washington D.C., Virginia, Maryland area where I grew up. And I had no idea what I was walking into. And it was really fun. I remember Warren Haynes from Government Mule and from Allman Brothers opened the show just acoustic solo. And then he ended up jamming a ton with the band as well. And not having any, preconceived notions about what I was going to see, I was having a good time.
And you were playing guitar at that point?
I was playing piano, trumpet, and kind of just getting into guitar more.
Yeah, because you saw some good ones. Wasn't John Mayer on that tour with the Dead for a short time?
So he was with them like most recently. This was probably in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
And Mayer was in the most recent version.
And,
and kind of had like another resurgence with them recently.
Yeah, and then any other concerts that you remember who you went with? You remember when it was? It's amazing what we remember about our first concerts. There any that stood out before you became a performer yourself that you were at?
Oh man, there were so many. I started playing at a pretty early age, like close to the end of high school. I was playing public gigs. I was playing for school performances, for churches, and things like that. But some of the standout ones were probably some of the jazz shows that I went to from artists that I was introduced to by either my friends or my band director. I was really fortunate enough to have a really strong high school music department, and I feel like that really set the stage for me to succeed, later in life, and to build a good work ethic, be around other musicians that really cared about what they were doing, work on teamwork and communication. But I would say some of the jazz shows I went to, like see Dave Holland, Lage Lund, an amazing jazz guitar player. We had places like Blues Alley and the Kennedy Center, right there close to us. And so that was super fun.
So you grew up on the East Coast of Maryland,
mm-hmm.
and then to Minneapolis, where you've become a bit of a musical fixture, to say the least. What was the transition? How'd you end up in the music scene here?
So I moved out here in 2007 to attend the University of St. Thomas. I was kind of poached out of some church music things, and they offered me a job and a scholarship, and before I even kind of showed up, and so that was really nice, and I wanted to check out a new big city, so I showed up, kind of was in my little collegiate bubble starting off, and then I started to play with more people, both in college, and then that kind of led me to meeting other people outside of that scene, and then by close to the time I graduated, I would say like 2010, 11-ish, I really started to meet people from outside of college and started to play music with other people.
Was Steve Cole at St. Thomas back then yet?
I'm not sure if Steve was there yet or not, but he was not really on my radar. I think he could have been there doing music business as I was leaving, but I was, trying to get out of there, and I was starting to play gigs, and I met a ton of people that were going to McNally Smith, and I was starting to join bands by that time. So it was really getting me into these other scenes and things like that.
But you ended up playing with Steve?
Steve Cole, yes.
Yeah.
Within the past 2 years. I've played for him at a couple shows, both in town, like the Ames Center in Burnsville, and
That's a nice facility.
It's great theater to play. We've played some shows at the Dakota, and then we've been doing some nationwide touring, some fly dates, and those have been very, very fun.
Yeah, I'm going to talk to David when we come back. I want to talk about getting back. We've talked about guitar. We will some more. In fact, today when I walked in the studio, there you were playing as I was lifting equipment. I was trying to be so quiet, so I hope I didn't screw you up. I doubt it. You're pretty focused and know what you're doing. I'm sure Davide was in the control room going, "What is he doing in here?" But I was helping L.A. I was his roadie.
No worries.
But I do want to talk about the multi-talents, and that includes a lot of instruments as well. So he is David Feily. He's with us here today on My First Concert. Dave here, and a big thank you to our friends at Star Bank, our bank here at TalkNorth.com, and at Star Bank here. You're going to find all the products that are tailored to assist you with everything you need. Now, if you're a consumer like I am, and you go in there and say, well, I'll need a loan for this, or I may need a ag operating equipment loan or whatever it is, they do it all. They started in Minnesota, small town, and the same family owns them now, even though there's 10 banks spread around the state of Minnesota, including right here in the metro area. But they have competitive rates, flexible terms, but man, you can rely on them. And isn't that a big deal in this day and age when you find somebody you can trust, how important that is? They've got the experience to back all that up. They'll offer any guidance that you'd like, any support that you'd like. They want your business to thrive, obviously. But they're just really good and personable at what they do. So personal banking, if you're looking to, work with the HSAs or your IRAs or your safe deposit boxes, or you're in the business banking, as I mentioned, or maybe you're working on a farm and you need that big ag loan, whatever it is. And you could do all this right in their lobby. They'd love to have you come in. They get to know you. They get up close and personal, really. But I know a lot of us, with everything going on, digital banking is easy for us, and they have that too. I just know they make it convenient for you. I'd find out more about Star Bank today. I'd go online at starbank.net as soon as you can, just learn about them. Loans are subject to a loan application approval. They're a member FDIC, an equal housing lender, and they're our bank here at TalkNorth.com, so we back that part up. Just really good people with kind of that small town banking feel, yet they're right here, as I mentioned, in this metropolitan area. David Feily is with us. Okay, David, so a lot of folks know you as a great guitar player, but there's a lot of instruments that you play. So what would you choose if you were in a concert, could have one instrument? What would you take with you?
If I could only play one, it would be the guitar.
Okay.
Because I feel like that's the one I can connect with the most on a bunch of different levels. Musically, just getting what I want to play and what I hear out. That seems to work the best for me.
But how many other instruments do you play?
I play a handful of other ones at different skill levels. I really like playing the bass guitar. I enjoy playing keyboards. I play the trumpet. I've been trying to add more mandolin, ukulele, and banjo into my stringed instrument family of skills.
Does that make for more session work for you?
Sometimes, yes.
Yeah, but in a good way.
Yeah, it's brought me some fun work and some fun experiences for sure.
So you're getting in this music business. You're coming out of St. Thomas. Is it what you envisioned?
Yes and no. I feel like the industry is always changing, and I am aware of that and how things can move very fast. And I also have always been aware that it's not just playing your instrument that makes your career. So in that aspect, it is kind of what I have imagined, but the specifics, are always new and fresh, and that's super fun.
Among the people you played with, who are they?
Let's see. The most notable ones, maybe, or the most fun people I play with?
Yeah, well, both if you want.
Let's see. As we mentioned before, I like playing with Steve Cole. That's kind of more of a recent addition. I play with this amazing drummer and band leader, L.A. Buckner, and his band Big Homie. I play with a group that I formed called the MInneapolis String Project, which features an amazing violinist, Ernest Bisong, and Greg Byers playing cello and bass. And that's kind of like fusion acoustic jazz mixed with folk and all these different styles. I play with an organ trio that does jazz and funk and fusion as well, called the BZ3 Organ Trio. I play for individual artists like saxophonist Lucia Sarmiento. Some people might be familiar with the football player Ezra Tuaolo.
Yeah, I saw you do the national anthem with him.
Yep. So
I've played
the national anthem at a bunch of different games with him. We've done a bunch of really fun events, charity events and galas and things like that. So that's super fun.
Well, I saw you at last at the Big Brothers Big Sisters Federated Challenge up on stage, and you got a good cast of musicians for that.
That was pretty amazing. We have the amazing Kenny Holman on the saxophone. We've had the amazing Pete Whitman on the saxophone. We have Jeff Bailey on the bass. Eden Palmer is our leader on that one, playing keys, and our musical director, and then the awesome Steve Jennings on the drums. And all those guys get around.
The venues. Do you have a favorite venue? Is there a venue you like playing acoustically? When you go for rehearsals, how do you determine if the acoustics are good? I mean, do you go back and listen throughout the place to the other guys, or can you just tell from the stage?
It depends on the venue and how much time we have to get comfortable with it. If we're sharing the stage with other bands, we're not going to have enough time often to really do the full, shebang for sound and all that stuff. So it can be harder to tell, and there's more trust involved with the sound engineers that you're working with. But if we have the chance, some of us might go out in the house and check, especially when we do instrumental music, when the focal point of the band might not be clear to an engineer.
What kind of guitar are you playing? Or should I say guitars?
My main guitar of choice recently has been a Paul Reed Smith, a PRS Swamp Ash special guitar. And it's super versatile, so hopefully I don't have to bring too many guitars to gigs.
What made you pick that? What made you take that?
It's versatility, and it's quiet. Some guitars, it's a trade-off between a bunch of buzzing and a nice sound. So this one sounds good. It feels good. It's light. I can play it for long periods of time without getting annoyed, and it sounds great.
And you could stick to that one, or do you have a few up there with you?
Usually I'm bringing one guitar.
Yeah.
If I was maybe playing, shows where it called for more guitars, like more specific things, I might consider it. Or if I had a guitar tech, or if I was on if I was on bigger shows, more big shot, then I might consider it. Sometimes,
I think you will be.
Sometimes I'll bring two if the music requires it. Usually when I bring two, it's because I have to play an acoustic guitar.
Yeah. Well, a guitar tech would be nice, wouldn't it? I was a drum tech today. If you need help with a guitar tech, I'm good at the grunt work. There's no problem with that. And you mentioned L.A. Buckner and Big Homie playing with them. And it's January you did that new artist show?
Yeah, we just finished the new artist showcase at First Ave.
Yeah.
It was sponsored by The Current and KFAI and Jazz 88 KBM. And that was super fun.
What's it like playing First Ave? It's legendary. Did you know about First Avenue when you were out in the East Coast growing up?
I think the only reason I knew about First Ave was because of Purple Rain, the movie.
Okay.
It was shown on like VH1, a bunch or something like that back in the day.
Yeah.
But that was probably the only Minnesota music I had any exposure to before coming here. And then, boy, did I learn a lot more.
So I know you've met, St. Paul Peterson and all some of the protagonists of that era, right? So when you came here in town, did you know any of these people, or did you just started to meet them maybe like I did? I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about anybody having to do with the Minneapolis Sound at all before showing up, except for Prince.
Yeah. Wow.
Yep. And you kind of know about Bob Dylan and some people, like Brian Setzer and things like that. But yeah, all that stuff for me was off the radar. When I straight out of high school, I was really into classic rock and blues and hard rock and stuff like that. And then I was just starting to dabble into jazz and fusion and funk and the stuff that really could bridge those gaps for me.
Let's go back to the hard rock for a minute. So are we talking Metallica, Linkin Park, Deftones? What are we talking here?
I would say first and foremost, I'm a rock guitar player. My favorite band is Led Zeppelin. I'm a huge Jimmy Page fan. I love Slash, Guns N' Roses. That's kind of where it started for me, and AC/DC and Hendrix and Cream and Clapton and all that kind of stuff. Like,
so you're an Angus Young guy too.
Yeah, the whole Guitar Hero classic rock thing really, got a hold of me. And then going into like the 80s kind of stuff, I love that. That kind of stuff as it got harder. And then even like the alternative, like some of the stuff, Linkin Park, all that stuff I really liked growing up, like when I was in middle school and early high school and stuff before I went back in time to learn about these guitar heroes. I was listening to, what everybody else was listening to on the radio for the most part.
Didn't you do Dave Matthews out of Chanhassen?
Yes, I play in a really fun Dave Matthews tribute cover band.
And were you a Dave Matthews guy?
Not as much as our band leader or some of the other guys. I feel like the Dave fans are kind of like a cult following.
Yeah,
kind of like Fish.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pretty much.
Or the Dead, but it's cool.
Yeah.
I love Dave Matthews' approach to music and the live show and incorporating horns and the violin and having live versions be different than album versions.
Yeah, and boy, having seen him in concert, I mean, he's giving you your money's worth. He's working up a pretty good sweat out there.
Absolutely. And he's got so many tunes to draw from. Like you could hear a couple songs, and like there's a lot of deep stuff that he draws from. Kind of like Fish too.
Yeah. Fish is kind of the, you never know what you're going to get. Do you at a concert?
No, people are always like hoping for certain songs, they're hoping to hear certain songs played into other songs or the right jams,
Yeah.
The perfect storm.
We were talking on the show with my friend Amy Mousy, and she was a promotions person for years in rock and roll. And she talked about, those particular bands you mentioned, but Rush, for example, she said backstage when people got to meet the bands, when it was Rush, it was guys. And when guys met, Neil or Geddy and met the guys, they either couldn't talk or they were tearing up. They were just so, so they're bands that have that type of following, I guess.
Absolutely. Especially like Rush when they're more in the limelight. They have got a history of being on the radio and having these great hits and having a really, really signature sound. And they started early enough, where they could really put their stamp on it. It's unfortunate that they're, probably not going to play anymore, but we'll see.
Yeah. Locally, you've played with the Steels.
Yes. That has been an amazing,
super talent.
Amazing every time.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that they want to call me and include me in their family of, collaborators.
Oh, God, talented too. I was talking to Geraldine, what I didn't know, but she said they grew up with the Jacksons in Gary, Indiana. I mean, think about if they were out there singing on the streets together, that would have been,
Oh my gosh.
Who other did you play with, like, that you consider your heroes? Did you have a chance to play with your heroes?
I mean, I've developed relationships with some people who I would call my heroes now from realizing what's going on in the Minneapolis Sound scene. Like being able to play with Paul Peterson, like Michael Bland, Sonny Thompson, Margaret Cox has been absolutely amazing. I get to sub once in a while for Dr. Mambo's Combo at Bunkers on Sundays, and that is super special every time I'm down there.
I saw that. Dr. Mambo is a big call.
Oh yeah,
big shoes to fill there.
Yep.
What do you know going in when you're working with those bands? What do you know going in as far as what you're going to play? Do you have time to rehearse, or could you just? I mean, theoretically, I'm sure you could show up and just play.
So a fair amount of groups that I play with don't rehearse, and there's a lot of trust that goes into that. It's trust that either you'll do your homework or that you already know the material. For the Dr. Mambo's Combo, initially I had a ton of tunes to learn because that is something that that kind of music is something I didn't really grow up with. And so I might have a handful of things that I know here and there or from playing other gigs. But then when it came time to actually start playing with them, I had to learn a bunch of tunes.
I remember when Ringo his all-star band's been here many times. I remember when Kirby Puckett, they honored Kirby after his career had ended and he retired outside of the Metrodome at the time. That's how old I am, David. And Ringo's all-star band was there with Mark Farner and I got to think of I don't know if it was Jennifer Warnes that was there, but Steve Cropper, and I'm picturing the band in my mind. Anyway, I'm leaving a lot of people out, but I saw on your social media one time that you said I am feeling fired up after seeing Ringo and his all-star band on a Sunday night. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, so me and my wife decided very last minute to drive down to Mystic and go see Ringo and his band, and I knew who some of the people were in it, like Steve Lukather from Toto and Greg Bissonette, but I didn't know that Edgar Winter was going to be his band.
Oh. Yes.
The guy from the Men at Work, the singer, he was there singing, and then also the dude from one of the guys from the Average White Band. So I didn't realize how big of a super band it was.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that it was going to be like a Ringo review show, and he was going to play drums to their songs too. So that was a treat that I had no preconceived notions about, and I was really happily surprised.
Okay, so you're going to go to a show. You and your wife are going to go to the show. Who would get you off of your regular, let's say Saturday night? If you're not playing, chances are you. But if you're not playing, who would you and your wife go want to see?
That's a good question. When you have to include your wife as a musician, what are you going to go see? Paul McCartney.
Yeah.
Probably somebody like that. She recently saw the Eagles with her parents.
With
Steely Dan, and I think the Steely Dan guys had to drop out, so it was
Doobie Brothers.
Doobie Brothers.
Yeah.
So shows like that. We saw Peter Gabriel together recently.
And?
Awesome show.
Yeah.
That was, again, didn't know what to expect, and all of his stage production.
He's creative, isn't he?
All the stuff he talked about. His songs were very engaging, and he kind of explained things about his new album and some of the songs he was performing and what the visuals meant. And he had custom art from artists from around the world for his production, and we were blown away.
Yeah. Cool. Davide, you're a sound engineer.
Yes.
And so you've had a chance to work with, David talked about Paul Peterson and others. You've worked with all of those people. Tell me about this guy, because you have raved time and time again about him in private.
Okay, so I met David maybe 6 or 7 years ago, and I was working on a session where I was looking for a guitar player, and of course, Corey Wong came up first.
Of course.
Of course, right? And then I go like, who's right behind Corey Wong? Oh, David Feily. Definitely David Feily. And that's when we kind of started working together on and off on sessions. Every time I needed a versatile guitar player, David Feily always was in my mind, because he can play it all. That's the other. David is like a Swiss Army knife. I need country, he can do it. I need rock, he can do it. I need jazz, he can do it. And that's so important when you hire the right musicians for a project, because they're efficient, they have the chops, they bring flavor into the project, and that makes a producer look really great. That's why I hire David.
Like David Zimmerman calling the guys, like
there you go,
and saying, "Hey, come over. We're going to do 5 songs with Bob Dylan.
Exactly.
Blood on the tracks."
Yeah, that's why they came here, because Bob Dylan at the time didn't feel it out in New York, and that was the idea.
Well, like L.A. Buckner said, we got to be proud of Minnesota music, don't we? I mean, we just
absolutely,
I gotta.
We do.
It's special, and it's this kind of music that is developed here is rare.
But what about your national scene now? Are you being asked to travel different places?
I've done some national touring for some different artists. For the most part, they've been here in Minnesota. Sometimes people will hire me from other places, but it's usually for recording, and I'll digitally, send somebody tracks and trade stuff back and forth.
We've done NAMM several times together, not together, but
tell folks what NAMM is.
NAMM is the National Association of Musical
Merchants.
Yeah. And it's a convention that happens twice a year, but the big one is in LA, which is going to be next week.
Yes.
Actually, when this airs, it happened last week. So David played several times in combination with people at one of the merchants' booth. And
shout out to Electro Voice EV.
Shout out to Electro Voice.
Yeah.
Mike Dussault.
Yes, sir.
That's where we are going to be
next week.
Last week, where we were. But yeah, so and that's kind of fun to do. I think, especially for a musician like you, because you can also go and check out the new gear and meet actually some of your heroes.
Absolutely. That has been one of the places that has had the most concentration of musical celebrities, like the musicians there. Like, especially in the years before the pandemic, when we were going, it was crazy. I feel like there was a huge resurgence in the networking part of it, and the social media boom kind of exploded, and people were going not only to check out the gear, they're going as like a social status thing and like a scene status kind of thing.
It's like more like a networking thing.
Yeah, absolutely. People want to meet each other in person. They want to see the people who are behind the screen. They want to see if you can play for real.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you're cool or not,
That's too.
Well, social media, I mean, you've seen that grow really from the start when you got out of high school and came to college here. I mean, that's transformed a few things, hasn't it, for you?
Absolutely. It's been kind of a blessing and a curse.
Yeah.
There's the kind of issue of oversaturation now, and that there's so much music and art and content and videos and audio coming from every which way at all times. And so it's tough to filter all that stuff out, to make room for yourself, and also to digest things as you learn and listen and consume other people's work. So in that regard, it's been tough, but at the same time, you can reach people. It's never been, easier to, touch people's lives in different ways and other places from your music. I feel in some ways you can be you musically or artistically and let people find you, or you can, put it, in other words, you can kind of put it yourself out there authentically and hopefully gain real fans versus catering to just the community that's right around you. So hopefully you can find ways to, either build yourself your own community like people have done, or use the internet and technology to find communities that already exist where they already appreciate the kind of person that you are and the kind of music that you want to make.
On stage, anything unusual ever happen that stands out through these many years? Hopefully not too much outside of,
Nothing really unusual, I would say, on stage. Everything has been pretty standard. I mean, the weirder stuff is always, breaking a string on stage for me, or, people falling over your stuff when you're playing in the corner of a bar, or some weird tech issue. But I would say all that stuff is pretty run of the mill.
Yeah. You get used to that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Okay, David, here's what I want you to think about before I let you go back to probably doing another session here tonight. I don't know, but you're going to put together a concert. I want you to put 3 acts out there that you're booking. They're going to be 3 acts that you want to see, and I want you to think about who that would be. You have about 60 seconds to figure this out.
Do they have to be alive, like a current act?
No. Anybody in your wheelhouse that you want to think about.
Your dream concert.
Yeah, your dream concert. Hey, folks, Aquarius Home Services is geared up to make your new year absolutely fantastic. And if you're ready to transform your water experience in 2024, just imagine turning on your faucet and excitedly declaring, I love my water. Well, I've done that. And you can enjoy worry-free water right now. And guess what? You won't have to pay a penny until 2025. So say goodbye to spotty dishes and revel in the softer hair and skin, and wave farewell to annoying white scale buildup, which is hard to get out of there, and rust stains. And Connecticut takes care of that. It's the world's most efficient water treatment system. You get purified drinking water directly from your own faucet. That's a big deal. All without the need for electricity. No kidding. And you trust us, you'll be amazed at how little salt you'll need. So as your local authorized Connecticut dealer, they're committed to treating you and your home and your time with the utmost respect. So don't miss out on the worry-free water. Act fast. Financing offers are subject to credit approval. Aquarius believes in earning that right to be recommended. Just a click away at AquariusHomeservices.com and just tell them Dave sent you over. All right, David Feily, your concert. Again, we know that in about 20 minutes it's going to change. But as of right now, who would it be?
Right now, it would be Led Zeppelin, John Coltrane, and Bach.
Oh, wow.
Because there are 3 artists that you can't see now, because either they're passed away or, they're not playing, like Led Zeppelin. So you have no access to them now. So this would be your only shot, rubbing a magic lamp, getting 3 bands out of it.
Yeah. That's powerful, powerhouse.
Led Zeppelin's my favorite band. Wish I could have seen them. Coltrane, another one, I feel like had so much to do with the development of jazz and Black American music, and just jazz as an art form, as a personal expression, as a movement. I feel like he helped develop so much in such a crazy time. And then for Bach, I feel like he also, in a similar way, but also in a very different way, set the stage for a ton of other music as well. Mm-hmm. And his genius really spilled into almost all of Western music. And so it would be really interesting, especially to see him do some of his improvisations. Like, he would be really well known for creating these crazy, 3-4 part fugues for like a prelude or something on organ or whatever he was playing back in the day for like a church. And then he would remember it and then go write it down later. And it would be these very genius, like almost math puzzly kind of compositions they would come up with. And he really came up with this harmony system that really set the stage for, classical and romantic other composers later on. They built upon this foundation and took it other places. And I feel like it would be really interesting to hear, things from their source. So Bach for one, Coltrane for another, and then Zeppelin, just because they're my favorite.
Well, what we learned about Led Zeppelin on this podcast was when they performed here in the Twin Cities. I think they're the only band, or maybe there's somebody else has done it. I don't think so. That played at the old Met Center.
Yep.
And the next night played in St. Paul.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Wow.
And so I don't know
both sides of the river, eh?
Yeah, very unusual. Can you imagine? And then I don't know if that was the concert years ago where they had to use tear gas because the people that didn't have tickets were trying to get in.
Whoa.
That's wow.
Crazy. I think it might have been Led Zeppelin, but I don't quote me on that.
So what did you think of the last concert they did in, when was it, 08 or 09?
The O2 Arena one?
At the O2 Arena in, that like in 2008?
Yeah, if I had been an older person at that time, I would have done everything in my power to have gone to that show.
Wow.
I think I was in middle or high school when that happened. Maybe middle school.
Okay.
But yeah, I would have very, very much have liked to go to that show. And unfortunately, I was too young to see any of like the Page and Plant tours and stuff like that.
Yep.
So
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my first nice electric guitar was a Gibson Les Paul because of Jimmy Page and Slash.
Nice.
And that's still one of my nicest guitars.
Now, you're on the East Coast, but I bet you, and Les Paul used to play every Monday night in a New York club, but I bet you never got a chance. You'd have been too young to get in the club, probably.
Unfortunately, yeah. I've been to that club, the Iridium, but I have not, unfortunately, I never saw Les Paul. That would have been another great show.
Yeah, well, and Jimmy Page, we learned on this show from our good friend Billy Shear, who's a great guitar player, played with a lot of bands, Johnny Home Band, and then others too. But Billy's just such a talented artist. And he told me, and I didn't know that Jimmy Page toured years ago, was with the Yardbirds maybe, and they played a string of shows, and you'd try to get a gig if you had a night free, and they played. Bill told me, and he grew up in the Grand Forks area, that they played in Mentor, Minnesota at the Maple Lake Pavilion. Jimmy Page.
Whoa.
Can you imagine? Of course, nobody really had a handle on him.
Right.
Then, but
that is pretty nuts.
Yeah.
The whole Yardbirds legacy is crazy to me, too. Them having Jimmy Page, Eric Clapton, and Jeff Beck all in the Yardbirds at different times.
Yeah.
They kind of handed off the gig to each other.
I know, and they were not as known when they were in the Yardbirds.
Exactly.
When they were in that band. Yeah, it was Eric Clapton. Okay, who is Eric Clapton?
Right.
It's like, but yeah.
Well,
it's crazy.
It's funny too. People that probably saw him say, I wonder if Jimmy Page was with him then. I wonder if Eric Clapton was, because they weren't. Little did you know, but man, I'd love to have a ticket from one of those old shows.
No kidding.
Just to look up. I thought that'd be cool. I didn't realize Edgar Winter was there with Ringo's All-Star Band.
Oh, yeah.
It's just blowing me away.
They played Free Ride, and they did Frankenstein.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
Yep. He had the big synthesizer around his neck. It was,
God.
It was great.
Years ago, I saw Edgar and Johnny together in concert.
I really wish I could have seen Johnny. I figured out about him way too late in kind of the guitar blues world. And I think he used to come play at like the Caboose, like back in the day a bunch, but just missed him.
Yeah, it was, I don't know who, I still have the ticket at home, but I don't think it says who the opening act was. Anyway, I'm digressing now. David, really appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, you kidding me? And congrats on all the work. And I know there's a lot more coming. And pace yourself because people want you at their gigs, which is a huge compliment. I didn't ask you about vocals though.
I sing some backgrounds. You're probably not going to find me singing lead on anything, but
never. Would you venture there?
Maybe someday. Depends on...
L.A. told us he was going to venture out into that old vocal world.
That's going to be awesome.
Where can people find your music, and where are you going to play next? And
they can find my music on Spotify under my name or under some of the collaborative groups that I mentioned before that I play with. Hopefully the L.A. Buckner album will come out soon. I'm also on an album with Lucia Sarmiento, who's an amazing saxophonist from Peru. She's going to be releasing her record soon. Actually, Snowman is mixing it right now upstairs somewhere. YouTube is a good place. I take a lot of videos from a lot of the shows that I play.
You have a nice selection there. Yeah,
I'll post some stuff, and it's all kind of over the place in terms of what kind of shows I'm doing. But I try to pick cool stuff, cool moments. It's pretty eclectic, and I have some lesson things up there on YouTube as well. You can find me playing at venues in town like Ice House, Bunkers, Dakota, Crooners, at some of the theaters like Chanhassen, Ames Center.
Yeah,
I'm getting around.
Kyle Center, you did a Christmas show over there, didn't you?
Yep.
How was that? That had to be kind of a kick.
It was amazing. We've done this for a couple years now. This is best year yet. It's a holiday show called Who Brought the Humbug?
Yes.
Features a live, band with a bunch of tap dancers. We have a really awesome stage that we've built for it, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. How's the sound in there for you? Good.
It's good. We bring in our own sound tech, and we have our own lighting tech with all of our cues for the show, and we dial it in.
Yeah.
So that's one of the instances you were asking earlier. That's one where I'm going out and listening to the band. I'm listening to the balance between singers. I'm moving around in the audience. Our sound tech is doing the same thing to make sure that everything feels right for the theater. We're in there for multiple days. We have a lot of time to really get it dialed in, and we want to deliver the best listening experience to go along with what they see.
Yeah, we'll look forward to that now next December again, right?
Yep, it'll be next December, and hopefully we'll be on the road a bunch before we bring the show back to the Twin Cities this time.
He is David Feily. You can catch him, and as you mentioned, YouTube is a nice, easy place to do that. He's a super talent here, and we talked about Minnesota music for a long time, Davide, and it's in pretty good hands with the younger generation, isn't it?
I think so too. It's been a pleasure to work with David and even with LA today, and I think you guys have such a bright future, and you are, in my eyes, you guys are out there. You're doing your thing, and you're putting a mark in the history of Minnesota music. And I hope you feel more Minnesotan now than ever.
For sure.
But
yeah, you bet.
Yeah. So no, it's been so great working with you, David, and I hope we have more left.
Me too.
In the tank here together.
Absolutely. I know we will.
Our thanks to David Feily for joining us on My First Concert today. You can get it on Apple or Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts. Of course, on our website at talknorth.com, a ton of good podcasts there as well. And we want to say thank you to our friends at starbank.net, our bank here at Talk North. From AquariusHomeservices.com studios, we appreciate all that support from Jeff and his crew, and they'd love to come out to your house and visit with you and help you out a lot like they've done for me over the last couple of decades. They're just awesome people. We'll see you all next week here on My First Concert.